Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation brought to you by Bet365. We're coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studios. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. My name is Dave Quadrelli. I am joined by Harmon Dial. The Rangers' downfall is upon us. The New York Rangers, Harm. One season of JT Miller. I'm joking. It's not Miller's fault. It's not JT Miller's fault. But we are going to talk about the Rangers rebuild. Retool. Wow, I already did it. Rangers retool on today's episode of Canucks Conversation. But first, we're going to talk about last night's game. The Canucks falling to the Columbus Blue Jackets. 9 straight. I should have looked this up before the show. But I'm pretty sure the Canucks record is 10 consecutive losses. That's the most losses they've ever had in a row, I believe. Jacob, make sure I'm right about that. But Canucks are home to the Edmonton Oilers tomorrow. In normal times, we would have had Bagged Milk on the show, and maybe we should have had Bagged Milk on the show to help preview a Oilers game. But right now, it just feels, I don't know. It just feels different. I don't want to talk about how good the Oilers are right now.
Yeah, and I mean, really the only notable takeaway from last night's game, besides the loss, which of course helps the tank, which feels unstoppable at this point, is Brock Besser finally snapping his goal drought. And on that play as well, Elias Pettersson continuing to show his playmaking side where he's finding those cross-seam passes.
Demanded the puck.
Yeah, and he's finding those seam passes, which is another sign that his game continues to trend in the right direction. And man, Besser really needed that one because during this goal drought, he's missed a lot of those prime scoring chances where it's a dangerous pass across the slot, incredible opportunity for him to bury it, and then he whiffs on it. I can count 2 or 3 examples of those exact kind of sequences on the power play where he's been on the half wall, Pettersson or somebody else has really set the table for him to have I don't want to say wide open net, but a prime opportunity. And he's healed it, or the puck's rolled off his blade as he's been trying to settle it. Finally buries that one. And also because moments before that, he had so much time and space on another scoring chance from that left circle area where he initially sidestepped the penalty killer that was in the shooting lane, had all sorts of time and space to pick a spot and still wasn't able to bury it. And you could kind of see Besser's reaction afterward, almost dejected in a way where can't believe that one's not going in either. So it was good to see him snap the goal drought, but yeah, it's just another loss to help the tank.
My only takeaway was nice for Besser to score, and also the look on his face after scoring the goal. And when Pettersson came up to him and gave him that hug, that was just pure relief on Besser's face. Bouillon looked good on power play 1 in the lead up to that goal as well. Like, I know we talked about Pettersson, he was a bright spot as well, but Bouillon and Pettersson working together to snap the puck back and forth. I thought those two looked really well. And really, like, let's be honest, the power play was running through Elias Pettersson on the half wall, which when it's at its best, it should be. And it was last night. And Elias Pettersson's starting to play well, man. Like, he's starting again. It's hard to say, oh, he's back, because he is still playing with very, very, well, no, I shouldn't say very, very bad wingers, but he's not playing with world beaters on his wings or anything like that. But he's starting to really look a lot like the player he was before, because we were talking about how, oh, well, okay, some point totals are here. This is nice. He's got goals, but we know he has another gear. We know he has another level of controlling the game. I thought he at least showed a good glimpse of that on the power play last night.
Yeah, and to go back to Bouillon there, it was an interesting night for him because not just on the power play, but at 5-on-5, I thought he was doing a lot of dynamic things with the puck, especially on exits, a couple of really nice entries where you could see more of the flashes of why he's such a highly touted defenseman, why he has such promising tools. But I also thought you saw some of and not just for him, the learning moments defensively, where I thought that Coyle Olivier line, which is 3 big dudes, was giving the Canucks fits all nights. And it is important context that this Coyle Olivier line has been one of Columbus's best lines all season long. So it's not as if they're a bunch of mediocre dudes that all of a sudden erupted against the Canucks. but it was noticeable how much trouble the Canucks had with that size and strength down low. And there were a couple of sequences where I think Booyam in particular had a tough time dealing with that size. Again, I'm not worried about it because with time, he's going to bulk up. With time, he's going to learn how to defend those bigger, more power forward style forwards in the future. But just a couple of some interesting observations with Bouillon, where I love what he did with the puck. Without it, still some progress to be made, especially you look at some of the underlying numbers. He and Tyler Myers were on the ice for the most 5-on-5 expected goals against of all Canucks defensemen in that game against Columbus.
I got a Canucks defenseman stat for you. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
J-Pat texted me this one. Hold on, I gotta make sure I quote it properly or Jeff will yell at me. He said, in all situations, the Canucks were outscored 11-0 on the road trip with Tyler Myers on the ice.
Tank Commander.
The tank is coming, whether you like it or not. We've got a super chat here. It's from Owen JZ. It's for $13.99. Very nice. He said, something I liked about 5 minutes into the third, I noticed Petey doing a quick cut down in the corner up the half while escaping a D-man. It's small, but really great from him. That is a super chat, which means it's a donation to the BC Mental Health Foundation. If you want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show, hit us with a super chat. All of our proceeds from super chats go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by spreading breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. It's little things. That's what I mean. Is it's funny to say little things when it comes to Elias Pettersson. When we're talking about point totals, it's the process that matters, right? For Elias Pettersson, even if he's putting up points, and I'm starting to see that process look more and more like it was before. Good super chat. Really appreciate that. We'll get to some more comments during anyone else, but I want to get to this Rangers letter. Did you have a stat of the day specific to last night's game that you wanted to get to?
No.
Okay. Let's get to this Rangers letter. Let's do it. This segment, our next segment, is brought to you by our friends over at Greta, a great spot for all games, home and away. You can skip line and not have to pay cover on game nights if you're wearing the home team's gear. And of course, there's also the game day specials at Greta, including $3.33 off select food items, $3.33 for select drinks, and more. They've got the arcade, they've got the bar, they've of course got the street food menu. Greta's a great spot. Make it your spot to watch the next game. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. All right. Let's go to this letter from Chris Drury. Oh, I got to pull this up on my thing. I can't see it on my screen. Hold on.
I just made it bigger for you, Quads. There you go.
Okay, I got it. I hand wrote it. Drury said, this is a letter from Chris Drury to the fans. All right. Second letter, by the way, that Chris Drury sent to the fans in his tenure as GM. Anyways, he said, we want to take a moment to connect with our loyal and passionate fan base. We know and feel your disappointment with how the season has gone to this point. We are just as frustrated and want nothing more than to deliver an on-ice product you can be proud of. It's what drives us every day. Interesting. No one in the organization is happy with what has transpired. Again. From management to coaches to players. Over the last few years, we've had some successes and moments to cherish, but ultimately, it was not the end goal. We are working relentlessly every day to bring a Stanley Cup back to New York because that is what our fans deserve. With our position in the standings and injuries to key players this season, we must be honest and realistic about our situation. We are not going to stand pat. A shift will give us the ability to be smart and opportunistic as we retool the team. This will not be a rebuild. This will be a retool built around our core players and prospects. We will target players that bring tenacity, skill, speed, and a winning pedigree with a focus on obtaining young players, draft picks, and cap space to allow us flexibility moving forward. That may mean saying goodbye to players that have brought us and our great fans and our fans great moments over the years. These players represented the Rangers with pride and class and will always be part of our family. As we start on this new strategic plan, we will continue to play hard with pride and passion for our fans. Continue is doing a lot of work there. We appreciate your unwavering support for the Rangers more than we can describe, and thank you for all that you do for our organization. You will begin to see some of our plans come to light in the coming weeks and months. Let's go, Rangers. All right.
Claude, you know that meme where someone sends you a long paragraph, a wall of text, and Person goes, I ain't reading on that. I'm happy for you though, or sorry that happened. That was kind of my reaction to this Rangers letter, where it rings hollow because it's coming from the GM that inherited pretty much all of these core pieces from the Jeff Gordon era, failed to capitalize and build on that core. And now this same GM is supposed to be the one to successfully guide them through a retool. Like, how can anybody in New York have confidence that Chris Drury is going to be the architect of a successful retool when he inherited all of these pieces, such a promising cast, and failed horribly to take this team to the next level, and has them in the position where they are now, where they're stuck with aging veterans on long-term contracts. They traded away another draft pick to make the JT Miller trade when it was clearly evident then that they were a mediocre team that wasn't going to achieve anything meaningful. This would resonate differently if it was a different voice sending the message. The issue is, I don't think any Rangers fan is going to be confident in the team's direction until there's a change atop.
No notes. My big takeaway from this, and we're gonna talk about how it impacts the Canucks, of course, but I don't understand how Rangers ownership, because here's the big takeaway, right? Remember we were talking, what was it, yesterday? I don't know when it was. We were talking about the Rangers, and I said, like, if they don't make the playoffs, Chris Drury's gone. And you agreed with me. Everybody agreed with me. That sounded like a reasonable take. Not only does it not sound like he's gone, now it sounds like he's got some leash here.
Yeah, and this is where, when we talk about a retool, I imagine the Rangers look at a team like the Bruins as an example for what they're trying to do, because the first question I asked myself was, well, what are the Rangers going to retool around? And the only franchise pillars you still have are Adam Fox and Igor Shesterkin, which is somewhat similar to the Bruins, where despite an aggressive sell-off at last year's deadline, where they cashed in on so many of their chips, Brendan Carlo, Brad Marchand, Charlie Coyle, Trent Frederick, just accumulated so many future assets. The Bruins, despite that, have made it clear that it's not a full teardown rebuild because they're trying to maintain relevancy while Pastrnak, McAvoy, and Swayman are still here. I imagine that's what the Rangers are trying to emulate, but I don't have faith and confidence in them to pull that off. I look at, outside of Shesterkin and Fox. By the way, Shesterkin's 30. So it's not as if you have a realistic runway to get back to being a cup contender while he's still in his early 30s. That's the main issue that I see with a potential retool, is they just don't have enough young talent. The core pieces that they have outside of Shesterkin and Fox just aren't good enough and are only becoming older and worse. So sure, this retool, it sets the stage for them to move in Artemi Panarin.
Yeah.
But in
UFA.
Yeah, but in the grand scheme of things, they're not anywhere close to turning this ship around.
No, exactly. And I'm going to give a prediction. Jacob, get ready to write it down. The Rangers retool will eventually turn into a rebuild. Like, I don't know if that's a bold take, but they were so clear. This isn't a rebuild. This retool, they're going to try it, and I think they're going to figure out that, oh, crap, we actually need to rebuild this thing properly.
Yeah, and when it comes to a retool, the couple of questions I had was, okay, Panarin's the obvious big chip for them to play because he's a pending UFA, and reports have come out today that the Rangers aren't going to offer him an extension. First of all, the return for Panarin probably isn't going to blow you away because he has an NMC, meaning he has a lot of control over where he can go. And if you look back at the Marchand trade, the Bruins got a conditional second round pick, which converted to a first if the Panthers went further than 2 rounds in the playoffs, which they did. But the point being, the Bruins didn't get a massive haul for Brad Marchand because Marchand's control in that situation and his willingness to really only want to go to one destination handcuffed Boston's ability to get a lucrative haul. So that's first of all, or something to be mindful of is Panarin will be a valuable chip. I don't know that he's getting you a ridiculously large haul. And then beyond that, though,
Trocheck.
yeah,
Trocheck's the name that I keep coming back to.
Where he's 32 years old, he's got 4 years left on his contract at a $5.6 million cap hit. That would be a desirable contract for other teams. When you look at Alex Wenberg being a $6 million AAV player on the extension that he just signed with the San Jose Sharks, Christian Dvorak being in the $5-ish million range on the 5-year extension he recently signed with the Philadelphia Flyers. Trocheck is a significantly better player than both Wenberg and Dvorak. Maybe not this season, but just the larger track record and pedigree that he has, where I think a lot of teams would view Trocheck as a legit 2C on a good team. The issue there is you use like Trocheck and JT Miller are childhood best friends, right? And so are they actually going to be willing to make that kind of a big swing? They absolutely should, but you have to know that if you go in that direction, you're probably pissing off JT Miller. And hey, if I was the Rangers front office, I would say, well, too bad, so sad. Like, you guys haven't performed. This is what's best for the franchise's future. But will Chris Drury do that to the player that he handpicked and acquired and made captain?
I'm not saying right now, but do you think they'd explore trading JT Miller?
I can't imagine they would do this soon. They said retool, not rebuild. Now, if the losing continues, I don't think they'd consider JT this soon. Chris Drury couldn't do that. Think about it this way, right? If I'm Chris Drury and I sell you on JT Miller being the piece that keeps us relevant and he's going to be a massive part of our core, I trade a first-round pick for him, which ends up being the 12th overall selection at last year's draft. And then I go out and through my influence as well, he becomes captain of this organization. I can't just half a season into this new campaign say, well, I'm abandoning that and we're going to trade JT too, because guess what that sounds a lot like? That sounds a lot like a rebuild, which the letter clearly says they're not going down that road yet anyway.
They got to get rid of something, man. Like Trocheck does seem like the easy one. Like, well, I guess not easy, but 12-team no trade list, you can work around that. And like you said, guy's near point per game this year, and that's been a struggling Rangers team. And he's on a good contract that's only going to get better as time goes on. All right, I want to talk about the Canucks' perspective on this. Okay, how does this impact the Canucks? Well, obviously the big one is Artemi Panarin hitting the market potentially. Not only does that take away the market for potentially Kiefer Sherwood, because if a team's saving a first-round pick and they don't want to give it up for Kiefer Sherwood, they might want to give it up for Artemi Panarin. Even though you made a really good point about how, you know what, maybe it'll be a closer to that Marchand return. It won't have a positive effect on the Canucks if more guys start hitting the market. Like, say they announce, yeah, we're putting Trocheck out there on the market. Like, teams only have so many assets to give up, and I think teams would rather buck up for a Vinny Trocheck than they would some of what the Canucks are going to be offering around the deadline. So that's the main one for me. And then the other impact for the Canucks, JT Miller's not making the playoffs again.
Yeah, I don't think it really impacts the Canucks beyond what you outlined. I do think it's interesting, and we should have a broader conversation around Kiefer Sherwood's trade value, especially in light of some of Rick Dollywall's reporting today, where I think on his hit with Halford and Brough, he suggested that Canucks might not get a first-round pick for him. And there's been a lot of debate and dialogue around that today. I think we should start there because I think that's a very fascinating conversation. I think with Kiefer Sherwood, I understand why the immediate reaction for a lot of Canucks fans is disappointment at the idea that, okay, maybe the team won't get a first round pick for him. It's complicated with Sherwood, though, because I think we know based on last year's deadline that the threshold to get a second round pick for rental players is low, right? Like you see Anthony Beauvillier went for a second round pick last year. Brandon Tanev, Mason Marchment just recently went for a second and a fourth. And so it's logical to look at that and say, well, Kiefer Sherwood is a better player than those guys. And so if those guys are fetching second round picks, shouldn't Sherwood be worth a first? The problem is the threshold to reach the first round pick level as a rental is much harder when you're a middle six forward. And this is where let's get to the stat of the day because it relates to some of these conversations. The stat of the day is a presentation of Uber Eats. Uber Eats is enabling fans to maximize their fandom all season long with exclusive game day deals on the app. From game day eats to paper plates and napkins, if you're hosting, to all the ingredients you need to make your favorite game day dip before, during, and after the game, Uber Eats is assisting every fan's hockey experience all season long. Hashtag crave the stats. Okay, so at last year's trade deadline, there were 4 rental forwards that commanded a first round pick. Brad Marchand, where it was the conditional second that turned into a first. Mikko Rantanen, although he signed an extension after. Brock Nelson, and then Mikael Granlund. To me, when I look at those players, they're all in a completely different tier than Sherwood, where they're surefire top 6 guys, right? The closest you might say is Mikael Granlund, but Granlund at the time of the trade had 45 points in 52 games, right? So as much as you want to talk about Kiefer Sherwood's goal production, Kiefer Sherwood has 23 points right now. That's about half of what Granlund had when he was dealt alongside Cody Ceci to the Dallas Stars for a first round pick. And that's what I mean, right? Is it's very easy for a rental to go for a second round pick. Teams are willing to just dish out second round picks for these mediocre rental players, forwards or defensemen, no problem. But when it gets to the first round territory for rentals specifically, I think teams have been more hesitant. Like I've seen people bring up like Scott Laughton, for example, and I think this is where it's really important to clarify. A guy like Scott Laughton isn't a fair comparable for Kiefer Sherwood because he had an extra year of term left, right? You're getting 2 playoff runs out of him, not to mention that Scott Laughton is a center, and centers are usually valued at a premium by contending teams. And this is where, sure, if Kiefer Sherwood had an extra year at 1.5 million, meaning you're going to get 2 playoff runs out of him, then yeah, no doubt Kiefer Sherwood would be worth a first round pick plus something else, but you're only getting the 1 playoff run out of him. And I've also seen people throwing around, well, look what Tanner Jeannot went for. Tanner Jeannot was 5 years younger. And again, the Lightning had long-term control of him as an RFA asset. He was not a rental. So this is where, like, I've seen a lot of people in reacting to, Dollywall speculation there that maybe the Canucks won't get a first round pick for Sherwood. And this sort of being this pushback that we see these gritty kind of Laughton, Jeannot type players go for significant hauls, including first round picks in recent times. But I don't think those situations are comparable to Sherwood because Sherwood's a pure rental.
Can I say this as well? There's been a idea that, okay, if the Canucks can't get a first for Kiefer Sherwood, it's an indictment on management. Just like last year when it was, if you couldn't get a second round pick for Brock Besser, that's an indictment on you. You couldn't get a second for PSU, a third for PSU. You couldn't get anything. Like, that was on management, and we rightfully criticized them for that. Sure sounds like they've really tried hard to get a first on Sherwood, right? Like, if it ends up being they have to take a second, I'm not going to sit here and say, what a failure. Like, I don't think there's been any point this season, at least this is what I've been told by a few different people that I've talked to about it. There hasn't been a point this season where the Canucks have been offered even just a first round pick on its own. And they want a first and a prospect. They haven't even been offered the first. So they've tried. I think they have done their best, and if they have to take a second, and it's going to be a second plus. Like I don't
Oh
think
yeah, it's not going to
just
be a straight up second.
Yeah. So if it's a second and a prospect that you like, or a second and a third, or whatever it is, I don't think we're going to come out here and be like ridiculous. The only way we say this is ridiculous, what is management doing, is if Patrick Allvin comes out on trade deadline day and says, I can't believe how low the offers were for sure. Take whatever you can get at that point. And I don't think it's going to get to that point. I really don't. But that's really the only way I'd be sitting here being like, what are you doing? This is malpractice by management. This is horrible. Only way I'd be saying that is if that's what happens, if Sherwood's a Canuck after the deadline.
I also think this year's unique standings and the market dynamics make it more difficult perhaps for the Canucks to fetch a first round pick for Kiefer Sherwood, because I was digging around. A lot of the top contenders this year are missing their 2026 first round pick. That includes the Dallas Stars, the Edmonton Oilers, the Colorado Avalanche, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Minnesota Wild, the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Florida Panthers. Right? Those are the teams that you expect to be the true inner circle Stanley Cup contenders. Tampa would have been the classic kind of team that likes to make a trade for a third line difference maker and is sometimes willing to pay a premium price for that piece. Although even in the case of, if you bring up a Barclay Goodrow, even with Goodrow, where they gave up a first round pick for him, they were getting multiple playoff runs out of him. But anyway, like Sherwood would have made a lot of sense as like a Tampa destination, and yet they've already given up their first round pick this year for him. And so you look at, all right, what are the other teams that are in the playoff mix? The issue is you've got a massive mushy middle where if you're one of those teams in the middle that's interested in Kiefer Sherwood, you're probably more reluctant to give up your first round pick, because even if you add Sherwood, there's no guarantee that you make the postseason and that you go on a deep run. So that first round pick that you potentially give up for Sherwood could end up being in the middle of the first round or even higher than that. It's not a guaranteed late first round pick. And so if I was one of those teams in, like, even if whether I was a top tier contender without my first round pick, and I'm interested in Sherwood, well, all I really want to offer is a second round pick plus something else. Or if I'm one of these mushy middle teams that is trying to get into the postseason and views Sherwood as a nice ad, I also would be wanting to build a package around a second and something else, because I'd view my first round pick this year as too valuable of an asset, because I don't know that is going to be a pick in the 20s. It could be a pick in the teens.
Some interesting thoughts coming in the chat about a Sherwood trade. I like this one. This is from Still 46 in the chat, who said Sherwood for Sam O'Reilly. Do you like that one? And be ready, because people are just firing prospect names in the chat right now.
Maybe, although, like I think pretty highly of O'Reilly as a player. I think maybe Tampa this year, I'd have to do maybe like that might be around market value. Maybe they make an offer like that. And we know that the Canucks reportedly turned down Ogren, who I would view as a similar caliber prospect to O'Reilly. So yeah, I mean, that's around fair market value for Kiefer Sherwood.
Here's one. Dollywall threw out the Sharks today. And Reg in the chat said he mentioned Philip Bysted as part of a return for Sherwood. Isn't Bysted like 6'6"?
No, he's 6'3".
Okay, that'll do. That's okay. I like him. 21 years old, Swedish. Important to mention that. Near point per game in the AHL, 10 goals, 18 assists through 32 games with AHL San Jose so far this season. The 27th overall pick in the 2022 draft. Do you like Bysted as a potential return in a Kiefer Sherwood trade?
I wouldn't want him to be the centerpiece. If it's a second plus Bysted, I think that would be a decent return. Bysted, you mentioned close to point per game in the AHL, but this is where age matters a lot. Bysted turns 22 in just a couple of weeks. So it's not as if he's 19 or 20 years old, near point per game in the AHL. A player with that kind of profile, you would look at and go, this dude might have top 6 NHL potential. With Bystad, he is more an Aatu Ratu caliber prospect, right? Not comparing him to Aatu Ratu today, but when the Canucks made that Bo Horvat trade and they got the first round pick, and Aatu Ratu we viewed as, all right, this is a B grade caliber prospect, who, if everything pans out correctly, Ratu could become a future 3C. Now, I think with the way things have gone for Ratu, odds are heavily stacked against him becoming a 3C. It's more, all right, you're closer to a future fourth liner, I think, in Ratu's case. And I view Bystad, even though they're stylistically different players, right? Where Bystad's a much faster skater, and I think he's got a little bit more offensive upside. I still view him as a player where, okay, if things pan out for him, you're looking at him as a future 3C.
One more. Igor Chernyshov, 1-for-1.
They're never doing that. They're never doing that.
If they did it, well, here's the thing. Here's an argument. If you do this trade in October, November, well, I guess maybe the Sharks didn't know that they would be in a spot to be acquiring anybody. But like Chernyshov was just a dude in the AHL. He wasn't.
No, he wasn't just a dude, and this is where
He was almost a point per game at 20 years old. It's great, but he can't.
No.
The reason you'll never get your hands on Chernyshov harm is because he came up to the NHL and now he's got 9 points in 13 games. That's why you won't get Chernyshov, because he's doing this at the NHL level.
Even if he was in the A, you wouldn't have gotten him, because this is where age matters. He just turned 20 in late November. So he's 19 years old at the start of the season, near point per game in the AHL. That is the kind of statistical profile early on that typically means, hey, this guy has legit top 6 NHL potential. He was a really high second round pick just in 2024. And also last year in the O had 55 points in 23 games. There's no way they would have parted ways with Chernyshov, even if he was still just in the A.
Yeah, you might be right. So the best time
big guy like that, a big speedy 6'3" winger who can drive the net, has legit skill, playmaking vision. Yeah, there's no way you were ever getting Chernyshov.
He was 7th on Daily Faceoff's Stephen Ellis's rankings of the Sharks prospect pool at the start of the year. But that's also because they have so many prospects. He's the number 2 prospect on a lot of franchises around the league. Okay. Anything else on the Rangers? Anything else on the Sherwood trade? I think we're good there. Oh yeah, I didn't even start anyone else yet. Let's get to it. Let's get to anyone else, which is a presentation of Pacific Toyota Dealers and the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid, a no-compromise approach to electric vehicles that offers the best of both worlds. You can drive up to 72 kilometers on battery alone, enough to get you from downtown to the rink, the grocery store, and home to recharge. Seamlessly transition from electric mode to the gas engine for a combined range of 962 kilometers. There's no sacrifices when it comes to horsepower style, with its sleek, low, and wide exterior and sophisticated interior. It's loaded with tech that's actually easy to use. You can plug in to recharge at home or at one of the over 2,000 public charging stations in BC alone. And now you can lease a 2026 Prius plug-in hybrid SE from $109 weekly at 3.99% APR for 64 months with $3,300 down. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. People in the chat are absolutely clamoring for Caleb Malhotra. I don't know. I don't like the idea of like, oh, your dad coaches the team. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the issue is he's
moving to the top 10.
Yeah, like he's he's going to be a top 10 to 15 pick. And I don't see the Canucks realistically getting their hands on another selection in that range, unless they were to package, let's say, the Minnesota first rounder and some other pick that they get, maybe from the Kiefer Sherwood trade, or their own really high second round pick and tried to trade up, then possibly. But even then, because there's a shortage of talented centers in this year's draft, Malhotra is the type of player that I think teams would place a premium on.
I think he's going to go in the 5 to 10 range. I think he's done enough to raise his draft stock that much. This is going to be an interesting draft. I think we're going to really ramp up some draft coverage soon because I've started reading about it, and it's been fun to actually realize that, like, oh wait, I need to know what I'm talking about when it comes to these prospects again. So I'm gonna start my goalie research as well. All right.
So
Jacob.
I've got something at the beginning of the show when you mentioned the Canucks losing streak. So I pulled it up. So two things to keep in mind here. One is back in the day, the NHL had ties. So if you had a tie, that would break a losing streak. So there's two streaks here that I've got. I've got an actual losing streak of 10 games. And then they had, I believe, was it a 14? I got
Winless. So it's a
13
winless streak.
Yeah,
winless streak.
So there was a win, like I think this was a 13-game winless streak in 1973-74 that featured 3 ties interwoven into the losses. So if you're looking at the longest streak without a win, that's what it would be. If you're looking at just losses, which includes overtime losses, 97-98, they lost 10 in a row. 2 of those were in overtime. Funny enough, both of those overtime losses were to Pittsburgh. And then they had a couple big losses in there, 8-1 to New Jersey. Obviously, the Devils were a powerhouse in the late 90s, so that makes sense. They had an 8-2 loss to LA. Ultimately, they broke the losing streak with a win. And after that win, Tom Rennie was fired and replaced with Mike Keenan. So when we talk about the worst era in Canucks history, most people would say the Mike Keenan, Mark Messier era. Well, Mark Messier was the captain of this 97-98 team, and Mike Keenan took over as head coach after this 10-game losing streak. So just adding a little bit of context there to what the Canucks are currently dealing with. Now, the difference at the time, obviously, was, the Canucks were trying to be good and still lost 10 games in the season, finished with 64 points. This time around, I think most fans want them to be bad. Go for that top pick. Slightly different situation, obviously.
All right. Do you want to know? Because there's people saying like, "Oh, get a center in this draft." I'll give you a name. I think I've talked about him before, and I'm not just saying this for the reason everybody thinks. Brooks Rogowski with Oshawa. Have you heard of this kid?
I haven't scouted him too much, to be honest.
Yeah, me neither. But he's 6'7".
Okay.
Right?
Well, first of all, where are you proposing that the Canucks take him?
He's gonna be a late first round pick.
Late first round, early second round.
With the Minnesota pick.
Or if he falls, you might even get him with your own second round pick if it's at 33 or 34, right?
Their second round pick is gonna be like the 32nd overall pick because Ottawa's forfeiting theirs. Or their first round pick.
Yeah, I see that he was ranked 60th on Craig Button's latest draft list.
I've got him. I
know others have him ranked higher, but
Elite Prospects has him at 33.
I'm rating him at 24 on this list.
It's the thing. There's all the different lists, right?
I think
232.
What I like about Craigslist is he usually prioritizes skill, and so when I see a massive dude at a premium position who is rated in a certain range by the consensus, but then Craig's a lot lower on him, like that worries me in terms of, all right, how skilled is this player actually?
Okay, I'll give you a skilled guy that I'd like to see with the Minnesota pick.
All right.
Ryan Lynn. Have you seen what Ryan Lynn's been doing in Vancouver?
Yeah, is he actually going to be like fall that late? Because if he would, 100%.
It would be the size. It would be the size. He's only 5'11", and he's a defenseman, so he could fall. He's been great for the Giants, but like I don't know, like what did Zane Parekh put up in his draft year? Because that'll help you kind of determine, I think, like where an offense first guy can fall. Yeah, like okay, here's the thing. All right, Zane Parekh had 96 points in 66 games. Ryan Lynn's got 50 points in 42 games. So Parekh was the 9th overall pick. Could Lynn end up in like the mid 20s, which is where the Canucks might end up picking?
I think he's going to be in the
15?
mid 15s, like in that kind of, like I've heard a lot of chatter about him as like a top 10 to 15 pick.
Yeah,
I don't think he's making, but yeah, obviously if he was somehow available when the Canucks go up to the podium for the Minnesota pick, yeah, you're running up there to select Ryan Lynn, but I think similar to the Malhotra discussion, like I think he's likely in the 10 to 15 range, gone by then.
Yeah. Yeah, see, this is the thing about doing draft coverage right now and talking is like, well, what's this going to look like in June?
Yeah.
Yeah. What about Vigo Bjork? Like, he's going to be too high. You're going to, like, he's going to be too high and too low for you to take if you have the first overall pick. They're not taking Vigo Bjork with the first overall pick, obviously.
Of course not.
But I do like me some Vigo Bjork. And I know if Dave Hall were here, he'd be all over it too. Because you got the brother. I like, and I've said this before, the Canucks are cornering the market on less talented brothers. Like, that is so smart. They've got Aiden Celebrini, right? Macklin wants to play with his brother. Come on down to Vancouver. Nice and easy. You got Wilson Bjork. Vigo wants to play with his brother. Tell every team that here's what you do if you're Vigo Bjork, okay? You do your draft meetings. You say, I'm not signing any contract with your team unless you're the Vancouver Canucks. And I'm staying in Sweden unless you're the Vancouver Canucks. And then the Canucks get him in the late 20s. Boom, problem solved.
Yeah, and this is where Vigo really impressed me at World Juniors. And I'm never going to say go draft this guy based on one tournament. But with Bjork, the key as well is that he's been an effective full-time player in the SHL, which is notable because the main knock on him is the size, right? He's 5'9", 5'10", and there are question marks about whether he's going to be a center or a winger at the next level. But to me, the size concerns are mitigated by, hey, if you're a 17-year-old at this size, able to establish yourself as an everyday SHL player against men, well, now all of a sudden I'm not as worried about those size concerns. And he's not just a pure offensive player either. He's a hard skilled guy. He plays in high traffic areas. Go back to the World Juniors. The Swedes were using him for a ton of D-zone draws and defensive assignments. Well-rounded player, dynamic skill. Yeah, this is the issue, right? Is I would love if the Canucks had another first-round pick in the middle, in the 15-ish range, because that's where if Vigo was still there and had a William Eklund-like fall to 15-ish, then you would snap him up and feel really excited about that. But the Canucks obviously don't have a selection in that range right now.
Okay, can I give you a draft take?
Yeah, go for it.
Gavin McKenna, how many points do you think he'd have in the dub right now? And do you think it would help his draft stock? I mean stock. He's either going 1 or 2, you would think. But I think I'd go back to what I was saying earlier about I think people are too low on Gavin McKenna, and they're not understanding that he's not playing in the dub.
Yeah, well, he had 129 points in 56 games in the dub last year. So if he returned, we're talking, 130, 40, 150 points. And yeah, he would just torch it again, and we'd be talking about him as the number 1 pick for sure. And I'm with you. I think even though some of the concerns are legitimate, I disagree with anyone that has him lower than second.
Yeah. I need to do more research on Ivar Stenberg because I want to have a firm opinion on this. I just don't want you to overthink your way into passing on Gavin McKenna if you have the first overall pick and then he becomes a star and the guy you take doesn't. That would be just a nightmare scenario.
I'll also say this. With Tynan Lawrence, if the Canucks finish 32nd, which guarantees them a top 3 pick, as of now, right, which opinions are subject to change because there's still 6 months left of hockey that these prospects have to develop and change their minds, I would not consider Lawrence with the top 3 pick.
No,
I think he's been thrown into that conversation by others, but I think that's because there's no franchise center in this draft, and because he's the consensus best center, at least up until this point, that teams like to usually value and rate centers highly, and sometimes will reach for them. So I think that because of that, he's been rated higher in some of these rankings than he should be. He needs to produce at a really prolific rate in the NCAA for me to justify taking even like if I was a team with a top 5 pick, Tynan Lawrence. He there are some yellow flags there. No points yet in 3 NCAA games. And even like, let's not forget, sure, we can talk about Celebrini and his NCAA production as a freshman was unreal, but even Fantilli, a guy who went 3rd overall, Fantilli, I want to look up the exact numbers to just give you a context of his production that year. Yeah. In his draft year, Adam Fantilli, 65 points in 36 NCAA games, right? So that's like, if Tynan Lawrence is like a 0.6 or 0.7 points per game guy in the NCAA, then he shouldn't be considered in my opinion, a top 3 pick.
So I'm going to build off of that for a second here, because there was some people in the chat when Harmon brought up like Craig Button's prospect rankings, like, oh, why would anyone listen to Craig Button's prospect rankings? He's wrong so often. Well, what Craig is very good at is knowing what GMs look for. And that's kind of what Harmon just said here. Like, Lawrence is in this conversation because he is very likely the best center available in the draft. And some teams are going to value that position and thus draft him probably higher than where he would go based off of his talent alone. And there was people talking about like how Gilbert Brulé was a 6th overall pick and Andrei Kopitar went 11th. Well, yeah, because Gilbert Brulé was putting up insane numbers in the WHL, and Andrei Kopitar was playing in the Swedish Junior League 1 year after playing in the Slovenian Junior League. So GMs aren't going to value a prospect like Kopitar as much as a prospect like Brulé, regardless of what we know in hindsight. Yes, Kopitar is a big power forward, won multiple cups, going to be a Hall of Famer. But at the time, you can't just assume that GMs are going to look at that and value it more because of all the other circumstances. So you have to keep that in mind when you're looking at someone like Tynan Lawrence. If he gets drafted higher than he probably should be, that's because he's a center and he's going to likely be the number 1 center available. But if you've got the number 1 or number 2 pick, you can't just take you can't just reach for a guy like that and pass up on the best player available when it's a situation where those number 1 and number 2 guys have separated from the pack. So I think that's something that people need to start remembering when we talk about Tynan Lawrence or Caleb Malhotra. Like, these guys are going to be top 10 picks for a reason, but just because they're centers doesn't mean you should take them over the winger, who is very clearly has the higher probability of being a star player. I'll put it that way.
I wanted to have a conversation quickly, and I wanted to have it yesterday. I posed it to PJ, and it's just in the context because obviously rebuilds are a hot topic right now in Vancouver, the Canucks rebuild specifically. I posed it to PJ, and I'll pose it to you, Harm. Realistically, like, what do you want the Canucks to do right now? Because I know there's people out there that are saying, trade this guy, trade this guy, trade this guy, trade that guy, get rid of everyone. And I get it to some extent. But realistically, like, what do you want them to do? Like, who do you want them to at least shop around? Because, like, we had someone in the chat say, trade Besser. Besser scored last night, so I guess that's why he's on people's parade. But trade Besser. Okay, I was having this debate with someone, like, not really debate, I think it was more of a conversation, just that, like, if Besser, we all look at Besser and say, like, okay, he's a fine player, like, he's a good player, he scored 40 goals in the NHL, only so many guys do that, but he clearly needs a center that he can play with, and he doesn't have that right now. The idea I had is, like, if the Canucks can actually be disciplined enough to go through an actual rebuild, they don't need to trade Besser right now. They could, like, rehabilitate some of his value and then trade him. And it could still be part of your rebuild. But then it was funny because the conversation I was having with the person was like, yeah, that's great in theory, but you know what's going to happen is as soon as Besser starts to produce again, they're going to say, oh my gosh, we found Brock his center and the rebuild's over. And now we need to add more around everybody. And now it's a retool. Now it's the next phase. The heavy lifting's done. And that's where the conversation ended. But realistically, I'm looking at this deadline and saying, okay, you're obviously trading Kiefer Sherwood. You have to trade Kiefer Sherwood. But, like, can you get a Connor Garland or, dare I say, Filip Hronek? One of the guys that we can agree right now has either their highest trade value that they've ever had, or what'll probably be their highest trade value for the foreseeable future. And I think the only guys with term that fit that billing are Hronek and Garland.
Yeah, and especially in the case of Garland, he's the one, because he doesn't have trade protection until his contract kicks in next season,
Next
which
year.
actually it would be July 1st that it officially kicks in. But up until the draft, you have an opportunity to theoretically sell him to any one of the other 31 teams in the league.
Yeah.
And this is where, again, I've said before, I'm curious to see how much demand and interest there would actually be in Garland and at what prices, because he has in the past been a polarizing asset. Now he has a fairly significant contract extension that will kick in. He's in his late 20s now. How would teams view the risk of all those factors? But yeah, he's one that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's too bad that Demko got hurt again, because I would have said if he was still playing well that I'd be looking to move off of him, because I don't see any scenario where, even if you're retooling, how Demko fits into that, where he's going to be 31 by the time his new contract extension kicks in. And just with the number of injuries he's had, I don't think he helps the cause. Not to mention, Demko at his best, even if you were somehow able to stay healthy the whole way, next year I'd be then worried where, even if you get the best, healthiest version of Demko, that it's going to inhibit my ability to collect another high first round pick next year, which I think this team needs. I don't think it's enough to just get one really high draft pick this year. And then beyond that, to me, it sort of just depends on, and this is where it's difficult. It depends on what offers teams are making on guys. Right. I personally would place an emphasis on trying to find a suitor for Marcus Pettersson before his decline maybe becomes
hang on. Do we not think Marcus Pettersson's going to be better when a different defensive system is input?
Of course, but I don't think it's all, hey, this is a poor defensive environment. Like, let's be honest.
It's not all that. You're right. But he was literally good down the stretch last year for the Canucks.
For sure. However, like, let's be honest, he had another tough night last night. Just got bullied by Kirill Marchenko in that puck battle. That has nothing to do with any defensive zone system.
Damn it, Adam Foot system.
or even like defending the rush, right? Even when Pettersson was playing well last year, and I'd argue his most impactful play was actually on the PK at 5-on-5 last year. There were still moments where his rush defense was okay. His gap control isn't the best here. And where he was tagged for some 5-on-5 goals against because of his rush defense. I think that part of his game is becoming legitimately below average in terms of the rush defense. We saw Nylander put him in the spin cycle, just absolutely walk him in that Leafs game. That has nothing to do with the defensive system. So I'd view Marcus Pettersson, where even though he has the no move clause, I think he's still on a reasonable enough contract where $5.5 million per year in a rising cap world where top four defensemen aren't readily available. I'd be looking to explore possibilities to trade him, and not just, hey, I'm trying to get rid of the contract, but he's still got enough pedigree, enough cachet that he should still be worth something, pretty decent. And that kind of move and these larger decisions for these players that have term left, they don't have to get done before the deadline. It's more, these are things that before next season, like, I want to see some of these guys moved on. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow, but that's what I actively want the Canucks to look for.
My whole point is just try to trade guys when you've been able to rehabilitate some of their value. But the point that was made to me is, are you sure that this team is going to get rid of players that are playing well and that have rehabilitated their value? Or are they going to take that as a sign that the heavy lifting's done, the rebuild's over, here we go, time to accelerate? And yeah, I can't confidently say that I know that. But hey, if they're sticking with the rebuild, hope that they would have the patience.
I think they're
to
too
do that.
bad. like
Sorry?
I think they're too bad for that hypothetical of
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
even next season. I mean, we'll see what happens, but unless you take drastic measures, like you're bringing Manny in as a head coach for next season, you have a scenario
really,
where you get
realistically, Harm. All I'm saying is Rossi plays with Besser, and those two click for next season. Like that's basically what I'm talking about.
I guess, but even then, I don't know if those two are necessarily going to click
Sure.
because neither one of them, like Rossi's not a typical playmaking center where he's going to drive a lot of entries, wants possession of the puck a lot, and is a natural creator, right? We know that Rossi's foot speed is average.
RE45 in the chat said, "Are there any 12th overall picks available for Marcus Pettersson? Package Drew O'Connor, and you can get a 12th overall pick." All right. Anything else you want to get to?
I don't think so.
I went skating. I've decided that I'm gonna learn to stop because every time I talk about skating, I'm just like, oh yeah, like I can skate, I just can't stop. And now I've just decided it's time. It's time to learn to stop properly. So that's what I was doing today. I put on a helmet for it. Usually I just skate around on my toque. I was wearing a helmet because I didn't want to fall. Didn't get it today, but getting there. And I think I need to get my skate sharpened. Jacob, how would you describe how do you hockey stop? Because I was skating with shorts, so you guys know.
Yep.
I was skating with him, and he's trying to explain it, and he was having so much trouble. He's like, I don't know. It's like you just do it, and I'm
It's
like, well,
tough,
that doesn't
yeah.
help me at all. So
You have to.
explain it.
It's about edges, right? You have to use
Inside edge. I know that.
Well, yeah, but it depends on which way your body turns, right? So if you turn your shoulders to the left, then you have to use the inside edge on your right skate and the outside edge on your left skate.
What? I thought it was the other way around.
No, because if you turn your shoulders to the left and you're
like open to my left. So
yes,
my right.
yes, sir. Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
okay.
Yes. Your right shoulder goes and comes to the left side. Then yeah, you have to like when I stopped, I would often only stop with the one with the outside foot, which is
P.
not
Rogers in the chat said learn to hockey stop 1 foot at a time.
Yeah. So and normally I would just stop 1 footed, but that's because I played goalie and more of that stopping motion would be done with 1 foot anyways, right? When you're making pushes and stuff. So like I'm a bad skater because I started playing goalie quite young. And I just never taught myself how to properly skate. So when you watch me skate, I do a bunch of weird things. But yeah, one foot at a time is a good way to do it. Practice just with the edge on the one skate and then the other skate.
Ashton Ryder said, "I'm a skating coach. Quads, hit me up. Shoot me a TM. I'll take some skating lessons." It was funny. Jake Fraser's in the chat right now, our backup producer. He said training for the skills competition. As soon as we got off air, we all said it. If we ever did an actual Canucks Army skills competition, Jake would win because he actually played junior hockey. Jake would just demolish all of us. It would not be pretty. But he's a nice guy. Jake's a nice guy, so he'd take it easy on us, but it'd be fun.
By the way, I did do some digging, and I think it could happen. If we want to make it happen early in the off season, like April, end of April.
Well, Jacob, let me learn to stop. Okay.
You got 4 months to figure it out. I guess 3.5.
You're like a good skater. You can stop, right?
Well, yeah. I just said I
said Harmon. I said Harmon.
Harmon. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can stop.
Okay. So maybe Harmon can give you some lessons. Pickle Rick said, "If you need some lessons, my 6-year-old can help you." That was what pissed me off. I was at the rink, and I'm like, it was an adult skate, thankfully. But I was thinking to myself, like, children can do this. If a child can do this, I can do this. That's usually my motto in life. So I'm like, I should be able to do this. And I'm like, anyways, I'm trying because I can do the old, the stop that everybody can do where you just slow down. But I want to hockey stop. I want to be able to do that, like pivot and work on the edge. Anyways,
when Jacob's in that, you want to do the aggressive, like give him a snow shower.
Yeah. Did we make the joke about me being an accidental power forward because I can't stop?
Yes, you did.
This guy drives the net every time. Yeah. All right. I got nothing else. It's very, very funny because the reason I want to stop is like, and I know not everybody's like this, but like you should have a baseline understanding of what players are going through and what they're doing if you are commentating on them. Like, here's the thing: how many times have we criticized certain players skating? Right? Well, I know what it looks like to skate well. I can't do it, but I know what it looks like. Like, I know what a good skater looks like. I know how to analyze if someone's skating well. Anyway, I'll get it. I'll get it. One day we're just gonna have a clip, Jacob, of me just snow showering a camera, and then you post it. All right. Anything else from either of you?
I'm good.
Okay. Oh yeah, baseball. I forgot we're playing baseball.
Oh yeah,
tomorrow.
okay. So speaking of that, I wanted to ask you. I actually forgot.
Mm.
Okay, now that the Jays missed out on Kyle Tucker,
Oh, we didn't even.
which
talk
by the
about
way,
it.
the Dodgers are ruining baseball.
Oh, I've got some takes on that. That's for sure.
And Bichette signed that 3-year deal with the Mets. How screwed are the Jays? What's Plan C?
Cody
Jacob,
Bellinger.
what's Plan C other than? Okay, I was gonna say other than Cody Bellinger because I don't think you're getting him
Plan
either.
C, honestly, like Plan C is they can run back a lineup that is slightly worse than their lineup last year, but adding Dylan Cease and having Trey Savage up all year gives them a significantly better pitching rotation. I don't think they're not screwed by not getting any of these bats, but it is going to it's going to put a little more pressure on guys like Ernie Clement and George Springer, who had really good seasons last year. Like they need to have a really good season again. There's less room for error, but like Anthony Santander spent all of last season injured. He's a guy that's hit 40 home runs in the major leagues. Like if he has a good year, then no one's talking about them missing out on Kyle Tucker.
You can't bank on Anthony.
You can't. I know. That's why I said if. And then like bringing in Okamoto from Japan, right? Like the Japanese players are always a gamble because you don't know how they're going to adjust. Like, but it's generally like fairly decent floor, but also low ceiling when you bring the Japanese players in. But there's a chance that he smashes through that ceiling. So
Jacob, we asked for a plan and you started naming guys. Did you go to the Canucks School of Management? Like, no, that's not a plan. You're just naming guys that they've already signed. Because
they didn't need like Tucker. The way I look at it was Tucker. Like Bichette, I think they were out on Bichette for a while.
Yeah.
Tucker was kind of like hey, we would like to get Tucker. If we don't get him, then we're probably fine with the lineup we have. I would say if you want the plan is they're going to be fine, probably in first or second place in the division at the trade deadline. And then they move a bunch of prospects for a big bat at the deadline, and a big outfield bat. If that happens, I wouldn't be surprised. And also like, again, I think they looked at it with the sense that our lineup is good enough to be a World Series contender again next year without Kyle Tucker. They wanted Kyle Tucker because he would have been like the missing piece to beat the Dodgers. And of course he goes and joins the Dodgers.
I'll give you 3 names. Okay. Obviously Cody Bellinger is one. You would like Cody Bellinger. You missed out on Cody Bellinger. The most budget option, Michael Conforto. Good left-handed bat. Good.
But like they don't need
he didn't even make the playoff roster.
They don't need a good outfield bat because they already have 5 good outfield bats. They needed an elite outfield bat.
Conforto adds some depth, and I'll give you another one. Luis Arias. That guy can play every position.
Yeah, I used to really like Luis Arias. I've soured on him recently, but like if you go out and get a Conforto, what's that mean for Addison Barger, right? Like Addison Barger is your Conforto internally, and he's young. Like I think the Blue Jays are, when you look at their outfield, they're probably okay without Tucker. Tucker would have been again like now we're the favorites.
Yeah,
but
let's hear Harm's take on this.
No, for me the disappointment was I'm sure they'll be fine in the regular season, but this is about trying to win a World Series.
Yeah.
And if I'm running into the Dodgers again,
Yeah, and now they have Tucker.
Well, that's what I said, right? Like you would have hoped that Tucker was your missing piece, and then he just goes to the enemy. But I think a lot of talk about the Jays in the last 24 hours does exclude the fact that they still went out and got Dylan Cease, who is one of the best starting pitchers available on the market. And they got
This sounds like copium, dude. I'm sorry.
Also, Springer gets hurt all the time.
Well, Springer's also a DH
And he's old.
now. He is old.
Well, that's the thing.
He's not going to play the field anymore.
But can he stay healthy? Right? Like when healthy, he's arguably your most outside of, I guess, Vladdy in the postseason, but he's one of your most important players. But Springer's getting up there, and it's the durability concern for me.
Exactly. And that's why I said it's going to put a lot of pressure on him. Like having Kyle Tucker would have eased some of the pressure off of him. Like people seem to forget that the Blue Jays were baseball's best offensive team last year with their lineup from last year. Like, yes,
Bichette was a part of that.
He was, but he was also hurt for the last 6 weeks of the season. And that's when they kind of really started looking like they were going to do something in the playoffs. Like you can say it's copium. Sure. I get that. But also like the Blue Jays lineup on opening day this year is only at worst going to be slightly worse than their lineup in the World Series last year, slightly worse. And that's if they don't make any trades. And I think they will be very active at the trade deadline. That's if you want to plan without naming names, there's the plan. They will add a star player at the trade deadline to put them over the edge in the playoffs.
Ashton in the chat said Jacob book Kyle Tucker so we can ask him why he went to LA.
I think the $76 million he's going to get next year probably plays a factor in that.
Yeah, these short-term deals, like Bo got so much money too.
Yeah,
so.
well, and Tucker's obviously like they gave him the 70, whatever it was, $60 million AAV, but $76 million in the first year, and then 70 in the second year, and then an opt-out. But like Tucker, just salary next season, Tucker and Ohtani combined are going to make more money than the entire payroll of 13 MLB teams.
That's what I'm saying. How
it's
that
broken? It's a broken system. There will absolutely be a lockout after this season, and I think that was a given anyways. But now this does it for sure.
No disagreement there. All right, let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day. I'm excited to play baseball with you guys tomorrow. It'll be good. All right. Tonight, what did I take yesterday? Some basketball bet. I think I took the Celtics. Did they win, Jacob?
Did you take this? I'll be honest, I don't remember.
I think you took the Celtics.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I took the Celtics.
They beat the Heat.
No. I took the Heat.
Oh.
Damn
you
it.
lost every bet this week, Quads?
Yeah, I think
And
so.
you're like the Canucks. You just can't stop with these L's.
All right, here's a dub. Tonight, the Toronto Raptors. They've never done me wrong. All right. Toronto Raptors are taking on the LA Clippers. The Raptors are at home, and they are slight favorites. We're going to take them. Raptors money line, you can get it at minus 130 odds over at Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get on the game. Use the code NATION at Bet365. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. Oh, yeah, there's football this weekend, too. Oh, I should have done football. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, whatever. Go Raps. Let's go. We'll close it out there for my co-host, Harmon Dial, and our technical producer, Jacob Azar. My name is David Woodley. Thanks so much to the episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.